Donald Trump has pledged to pursue the largest deportation effort in American history. Those are his words. He spent months preparing his base for what is essentially a mass displacement of human beings by flooding the discourse with disinformation and conspiracy theories about migrants. Now, immigrants and advocacy groups are bracing for families to be torn apart under a second Trump term. Up to 4 million mixed status families, where some members are undocumented while others either are U.S. citizens or have some sort of legal status in the United States, are at risk of being separated, according to estimates from the American Immigration Council. If you recall, Trump's family separation policy at the southern border under his first term led to one of the cruelest and most shameful chapters in recent American history. More than 3,000 children were forcibly taken from their parents at the border and transferred to more than 100 shelters nationwide. According to the Washington Post, quote, the intention was obvious, as was quickly made apparent. The administration sought to deter people from coming to the United States by presenting the very real possibility that they would lose their children by doing so, end quote. In other words, the cruelty was the point. Now, as of last year, the Washington Post reported that 1,400 children still have not been reunited with their families. NBC reports that the incoming administration is considering restarting family detention and potentially building more detention facilities. Trump has also promised to recruit more state and local law enforcement to aid in this sweeping effort, and sources from the incoming administration have flagged the intention to roll back policies that protect sensitive locations, things like schools, churches, and hospitals, from immigration raids. For all this, Trump's incoming border czar, Tom Homan, who also acted as the acting head of ICE in the last Trump administration, wants Congress to approve at least 100,000 detention beds in preparation. My next two guests illustrate what happens when mixed status families get caught in the crosshairs of America's broken immigration system. Viviana Marquez was a senior at Yale when she offered to drive her father, Melesio, who was undocumented, to his routinely scheduled immigration appointment. Melesio had migrated from Mexico in 1998. He had worked in construction, paid his annual taxes, and lived as a model citizen despite lacking legal immigration status. Viviana had applied to adjust his immigration status just 8 months earlier, and she says they were told that he'd be granted his green card at this particular appointment, to which she drove him. Seeing how excited and nervous her father was that morning, she offered to drive him. And at the appointment, their assigned immigration officer initially told them that their petition would be approved at a later date. But then Viviana was asked to leave the room. In her own words, quote, she asked me to leave. I didn't want to, so she turned to my father and asked him to tell me to leave. As I waited, 3 Immigrations and Customs Enforcement agents came in and took custody of my dad. When our lawyer reappeared, the look on his face told me everything I needed to know. The world felt ripped from under my feet, end quote. Viviana went on to launch a multinational campaign calling for her father's release and demanding protections for mixed-status families. Now, during this difficult period, there was one silver lining. Viviana graduated from Yale with honors, though without her father by her side. Melesio was ultimately deported, forcing nearly her entire family, except for Viviana, to leave the only life they had ever known. She wrote at the time, quote, what happened to him is not an appropriate application of the law. It is cruelty. It's not just my dad's story. Under President Trump, every undocumented person living in the United States is a target. Undocumented people want to cooperate with the law, but there's no path for them to do so without jeopardy of detainment or removal. So many families like mine are threatened by a deeply flawed immigration system in the United States, which is basically enforced in an ad hoc manner. If upholding the law is important, pulling families apart is no way to do it, end quote. Erica Andiola was just 11 years old when she entered the United States in 1998 with her 2 siblings and her mother, who was fleeing domestic violence in Mexico. They settled in Arizona, a state notorious for its harsh anti-immigration laws, where Erica says she struggled to fit in without a support system. Classes were taught exclusively in English, and undocumented students were forced to pay out-of-state college tuition costs to attend state schools. Speaking to a local paper, she said, quote, I knew I was a smart young woman. I knew I was a young woman who was capable of a lot, but oftentimes I didn't have the support I needed when I first arrived to achieve my goals, end quote. But Erica would soon find her voice in the Dreamer movement, becoming one of its prominent and widely respected leaders. For Erica, activism became a lifeline, and she would soon help launch one of the most significant and historic movements in the U.S. on behalf of undocumented youth. The Dreamers are undocumented immigrants who came to America as young children, growing up with America as their home but without legal status. As one prominent activist, Erica organized civil disobedience campaigns at the U.S. Capitol. She participated in hunger strikes, and she attended meetings at the White House. Her efforts would pay off, and in 2012, the Obama administration approved the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. You'll know that as DACA, granting Erica and millions of other young people work permits, temporary protection from deportation, access to health care, and educational scholarships. DACA would transform the lives of millions of undocumented youth across the country. In 2013, Erica quit her job as a congressional staffer on Capitol Hill to help her mom and brother fight deportation. She was able to secure their release after mobilizing nationwide support in their defense. And last year, Erica got her green card. Joining me now, Erica Andiola, the Director of Communications for the Young Center for Immigrant Children's Rights. She's also the former president and co-founder of the Arizona Dream Coalition, previously served as press secretary for Latino Outreach for Sanders' 2016 presidential campaign. Viviana Andiola Marquez is a trial lawyer at Waymaker, where she represents clients across business sectors in civil, regulatory, and criminal matters. In 2014, the New York Times published her personal statement about growing up homeless. She went on to graduate from Yale University with honors and later earned a degree from Stanford Law School. Welcome to both of you. Great to see you. Viviana, it's been some years since you and I first spoke, and I mean, it's such remarkable joy to see the success that both of you have achieved despite the adversity that you faced. I just want to underscore, though, for Americans who look at you, who see you as a lawyer and a remarkable success, your family was ripped apart as you were growing up. You, in spite of that, have achieved the success that you've achieved, maybe even because of it. But I want to go back to those days when you and I first met and we first talked, and you were graduating from your undergraduate and your father was taken from you. Tell me how that was.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me again. It has been some time. At that time, it was really intense, and my family continues to feel the ramifications to today. I think I was very concerned about my youngest siblings, who at the time were around 2 and 7, being effectively de facto deported with my dad. Ever since then, they've been living in Mexico, and just this last year, I tried to bring the oldest of the 2 back to the U.S. so she could do high school, but it proved to be too difficult for her, and I am concerned about their future. They are not going to have the same opportunity as me to go to college and have a successful career, so that has been very difficult, and I know that a lot of other children around the U.S. who have unauthorized parents might face the same fate as my younger siblings.
Erica, congratulations, first of all, on obtaining your green card. You know, both of you are so accomplished and have done so much and are really emblematic of exactly people like you, right? You're not 2 standouts. You are as standoutish as you are. You are what young immigrants who come to this country do. And part of this conversation is to underscore for people, it is families like yours that are being ripped apart or have been ripped apart. You've had a little bit more success in trying to keep a couple of members of your immediate family in the United States.
That's right, but I'm still fighting to keep my mom here. Thankfully, my brother was able to get his his residency. He's applying for citizenship because he was married to a U.S. citizen. But my mom is still in deportation proceedings. I have been begging the Biden administration to do something to stop her deportation before they leave office, but they have not listened to me. So she's going to be battling her deportation under Trump. And as you can hear in my voice, I'm definitely scared. My mother is 66 years old now. She is a great grandmother now. She has a 3-year-old great granddaughter. Her name is Sophie, and she loves her so much. And she is actually now 3rd generation in this country. Her mom was born here, and her grandmother happens to be undocumented. So, you know, this is something that families across the U.S. are really scared of, and it's unfortunate because of what we hear in the media and a lot of media is that they're doing this for security purposes to feel safer, right? And what comes to my mind is, how is deporting a 66-year-old great-grandmother who has done nothing wrong but to leave Mexico because of domestic violence, how is that going to make anybody safer in this country? I just don't understand.
Viviana, this is exactly a conversation you and I had all these years ago, and this is why I think it's important to describe your father. This is not a guy who was a threat to anybody under any circumstances. He was a steady worker. He was employed. He was actually following the rules. You were going to an immigration appointment in which you thought he would get status. He paid his taxes. He did all the things that are model behaviors. And by the way, as Dreamers, it's the same idea. But there's overwhelming support for Dreamers to stay in this country and have legal status. So tell me, let's answer that same question, Viviana. Your father was no threat to anyone. He was a net contributor to American society and our economy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's unfortunate that the Trump administration wants to pursue immigration policy by fear. I think that in practice, the only thing he does is terrorize a lot of hardworking families like mine, and doesn't actually carry out the enforcement priorities that he claims to want to pursue. The places that he's going to raid don't have the people that he claims to be targeting. So he wants to rule by fear, and I just think we're going to have the same results and a bunch of more families traumatized in the process. It's unnecessary waste of resources. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have much more to say than that.
Viviana, one of the things, Erica, one of the things that's important to keep in mind is when you're in a mixed status family, and frankly, this could apply to a whole lot of unauthorized immigrants, the disincentive to commit crimes is huge. Right? I mean, it's far greater than if deportation is not on the menu. People don't commit crimes. We can find any statistic anywhere in the country that proves that there's somebody in some particular group that committed a crime, sometimes a heinous crime. But generally speaking, people who have mixed status families understand that the penalty for committing even small crimes could be deportation, and nobody wants to be separated from their families.
Absolutely. I mean, I can tell you, look, I grew up mostly in Arizona. And Arizona has been known for trying to pass a law back in 2010 called SB 1070, which was the Show Me Your Papers law. That's how it used to be called. And so I grew up really looking, looking behind every time I was in the streets trying to figure out, is there a cop back there, right? We're afraid. A lot of times when I was undocumented, I was afraid of being in contact with the police in any way. And I know a lot of people in our community don't commit crimes. They try to stay away from anything that will draw attention to them because of their status. And that has shown, I mean, as you mentioned, statistics says that people who are undocumented are way less likely to commit crimes. And I understand why. It's really scary to be around the police. It's really scary to know that you might be separated from your family in the blink of an eye, right? And so the statistics are there. Unfortunately, we have a marketing machine that was activated during the last elections that has told the American people that that's not the case, that the opposite is the case. And so that's why, people like Viviana and I are here to tell our stories. And it's also scary for us, right? And I'm speaking also for myself. It's scary, but we're doing it because we want people to know and to see the human faces of what the cost of what Trump is promising to do will be.
Right, and we have to see them as individuals as opposed to, the statistics are there, but we have to actually, Viviana, you wrote in your piece something that Erica just said. Families are often forced to choose between cooperation with the law and then risking, like your father did, detainment and deportation, or trying to avoid the law entirely because you're constantly scared that something that will happen will get you into an interaction with the police that'll get you deported. This is not the way you sow good and healthy relations among citizens.
Totally. And I think that like in the last several years, we've seen the effects of the creating distrust between community members and law enforcement. There is no incentive to cooperate if the enforcement is going to be harsh. It's very black and white. There has to be room to pursue things humanely and tailored to people's circumstances. And we're sold the story that this is the only way to do it. But if more people advocated for different outcomes, then perhaps those relations can improve.
Thank you to both of you. Thanks for your bravery. Viviana, good to see you back again. Erica, this will be like my relationship with Viviana. It'll be a conversation we will continue to have because it's going to be an important one. We're going to change everybody's narrative one or two people at a time, if that's what we have to do to tell the real stories, which you've both done. Thank you for being here. Erica Andiola is the Director of Communications at Young Center for Immigrant Children's Rights. Viviana Andazola Marquez is a trial lawyer at Waymaker.